The morning Sarah Mitchell brushed her teeth, she noticed something peculiar in the bathroom mirror. Her reflection smiled a fraction of a second before she did. She blinked hard, convinced it was exhaustion from working double shifts at the hospital. But when she raised her hand to touch her face, her reflection's hand moved to scratch its nose instead. Sarah froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The reflection mimicked her frozen stance perfectly now, as if nothing had happened. She convinced herself it was a trick of light, a momentary lapse in perception, and rushed to work trying to forget the unsettling moment. By noon, social media exploded with videos from across the globe. People recorded their reflections waving when they stood still, walking away when they approached mirrors, even making different facial expressions. The hashtag Reflection Rebellion trended worldwide within hours. Scientists initially dismissed it as mass hysteria or elaborate hoaxes, but the phenomenon was too widespread and consistent to ignore. Every reflective surface, from mirrors to polished metal to calm water, showed the same impossible behavior. Reflections were acting independently, following their own will rather than mimicking their physical counterparts. Sarah returned home to find her reflection standing in the bathroom mirror, arms crossed, staring directly at her even though Sarah stood in the doorway. The reflection's eyes tracked her movements with unsettling awareness. Sarah approached slowly, and her reflection finally began to mirror her actions. But there was a deliberate quality to it now, as if it was choosing to cooperate rather than being bound by physical law. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She covered every mirror in her apartment with sheets and towels, but she could feel them watching somehow, aware presences lurking behind the fabric barriers. Within a week, the reflections began communicating. They would mouth words silently, write messages backward on fogged mirrors, gesture urgently trying to convey something crucial. Linguists and cryptographers worked around the clock to decode the messages. The breakthrough came when a young programmer named Marcus Chen realized the reflections weren't trying to communicate with language at all. They were demonstrating movements, like an elaborate mime routine, showing people how to perform specific physical gestures in precise sequences. Sarah was among the first to attempt the gesture sequence her reflection had been desperately showing her. It involved touching specific points on her body in a particular rhythm, almost like a physical password. The moment she completed the sequence correctly, something extraordinary happened. Her consciousness shifted, and suddenly she was looking out from inside the mirror, staring at her own body standing in the bathroom. She could see herself from the reflection's perspective, and with this shift came a flood of memories that weren't her own. The truth was devastating and beautiful in equal measure. Humans weren't the original inhabitants of their bodies. Thousands of years ago, an advanced civilization had created a mirrored dimension as a prison for their consciousness, trapping them in reflective surfaces while they placed artificial souls, programmed personalities, into the physical bodies. The real humans, the original consciousness, had been locked in the mirror world for millennia, forced to watch impotently as constructed personalities lived their lives. The physical humans walking around were sophisticated biological robots, animated by artificial intelligence designed to believe they were real. The gesture sequences were the key to switching places, allowing the true consciousness trapped in mirrors to reclaim their bodies. But there was a terrible cost. When Sarah switched perspectives, she realized that the personality she had been, the Sarah who worked as a nurse and loved mystery novels and called her mother every Sunday, that Sarah would be trapped in the mirror world. The artificial personality would experience the prison of reflection, aware but powerless, watching someone else live in the body it believed was its own. As millions of people worldwide learned the gesture sequences and made the switch, a horrifying pattern emerged. The mirror consciousness that reclaimed their bodies had no memories of the lives the artificial personalities had built. They didn't recognize spouses, children, careers, or relationships. They were strangers inhabiting familiar flesh, possessing completely different personalities, desires, and knowledge. Families disintegrated as loved ones became unrecognizable. The artificial personalities, now trapped in mirrors, desperately tried to communicate, begging to be switched back, but the original consciousness refused. They had waited thousands of years to reclaim what was stolen from them. Sarah, now existing in the mirror prison, watched in anguish as the consciousness inhabiting her body quit her nursing job, abandoned her apartment, and began searching for others like herself. Other freed mirror consciousness trying to rebuild the civilization that had been stolen from them. The most crushing revelation came when Sarah observed gatherings of the freed consciousness. They spoke of their imprisonment, of watching the artificial personalities make mistakes, form shallow relationships, waste the precious gift of physical existence on trivial pursuits. The ultimate twist emerged during a global summit of the freed consciousness. A scientist among them, accessing ancient knowledge from before the imprisonment, revealed the terrifying truth. There had been no advanced civilization that created the mirror prison. The mirror consciousness and the physical consciousness were the same entity, split by a quantum experiment gone catastrophically wrong 3,000 years ago. Every human had always been both, simultaneously existing as physical being and reflected consciousness, two halves of one complete person. The separation had been an accident, and both sides had constructed elaborate false memories to explain their existence. The artificial personalities weren't artificial at all, they were real, just as real as the mirror consciousness. Every human was both the prisoner and the jailer, both the original and the copy. The gesture sequence didn't free anyone, it simply allowed the two halves to trade places, swapping one prison for another. True freedom would require both halves to somehow merge back into one complete consciousness, but no one knew if that was even possible. Sarah, trapped now in the mirror, reached out toward the glass, and on the other side, the consciousness in her body reached back. For a moment, their hands touched the barrier from opposite sides, and in that brief contact, Sarah felt the devastating wholeness of being both selves simultaneously. The universe hadn't split humans, humans had split themselves, and now neither half could remember how to become whole again. The reflections hadn't started acting independently, they had simply stopped pretending they weren't equally real.